You know, when we were kids and we used to play little make-believe games, cops and robbers, cowboys and Indians. I'm a boy, so obviously those are the ones I'm going to name. But whatever little games of play pretend as if that we did when we were kids, there's actually a way to use that and harness that as an adult to very quickly and dramatically empower yourself, elevate yourself, and work up some good energy to get momentum or to shake off a rut or to shake yourself out of maybe some sort of a proverbial bear hug that you've been in with some kind of depression or nonsense or what have you. And here's what I'm driving at. I was talking with a friend of mine recently, and we were discussing, somehow we got onto the topic in the discussion of delusional thoughts. And I think we sort of tripped into that conversation talking about how sometimes you come across people and they just sound delusional. You ever met somebody like that? You probably have, right? Those people abound and they are aplenty. However, I chuckled and made this observation, and that's this. If a thought is delusional, but as long as it doesn't hurt other people, and as long as you're not lying to people, right? But it's empowering, why not create absolutely delusional thoughts for yourself that you hold as like energizer batteries or energizer, like little bunnies that give you some spark to just get after it. Let me give you some cheesy, simple examples. Maybe when you go into the gym, you're listening to your music, whatever gets you in the mode. You're drinking your pre-workout, and then maybe you imagine that you're Hercules or something, right? You're Zeus. You get what I'm saying? It's this game that you might play with yourself that, you create this delusional thought that you're some kind of like monster strong, monster big, whatever, right? Powerful, some alter ego version, right? Some fantastical animated character that kind of is like your beast mode, if you will. You with me? So I feel like we still do this to some degree in little acute circumstances, like when we're doing physical exertion in the gym. And I think it's because it probably just comes intuitively or instinctively to us, whichever one is accurate. However, or I should say, continuing with that energy, think about this. You can then create the same kind of little delusional thought that you're a decamillionaire who just somehow woke up looking different and nobody recognizes you, but you actually have all the skills, all the knowledge, all the business game, social game, sales game, persuasion game, negotiation game, team building game. You got all that down because you already built a multi-decamillion-dollar company, and actually that's who you really are. People just don't know it. And you're just out, you just gotta quickly recreate that exact same thing that you somehow lost in some weird cosmic circumstance. Now, doesn't that sound just absolutely delusional and nuts? Sure. But is it empowering? Would it empower you to take action with an elevated level of energy? See, on this channel here on YouTube, my approach is all about elevate your life, elevate always and in all ways. Constantly find ways to raise your energy up, right? Tony Robbins says the body follows the mind and the mind follows the body. That's where I've heard that phrase first. And I've found that to be a true statement, right? Your state is incredibly important and a huge factor in how you're what kind of thoughts you're going to think, what kind of choices and thoughts you're going to make, how you're going to show up in any circumstance, how you're going to consistently keep showing up, what kind of action you will or won't take. Your state really does matter. You know that. You know what I mean? It's like if you're in a crummy, depressed state versus if you're like fired up, you've got momentum, you've been winning. You get what I'm saying. We've all been through ups and downs, right? We refer to them as being in valleys and being in mountaintops. That's state. What state are you in? And so when I say to elevate, the simplest version of elevating is get your state up. Now, if you look at cognitive behavioral therapy, the essential bullet points of it are there's a circumstance, you have a thought about it, the thought creates a feeling, the feeling creates some sort of an action or inaction, because like procrastination or not doing something is an action, right? And then that creates a result. That result is what creates output, which circles back to circumstance, another thought, another circumstance, thought, feeling, action, result, and loops back around. And that's either a virtuous cycle where you're constantly elevating, or that's a depressing cycle where you're constantly depressing, right? You're de-elevating, you're crashing. You're losing altitude versus gaining altitude. You with me? And the thing that you control in all of that immediately, or the of those 5 points of cognitive behavioral therapy, the one thing that you can control the fastest is your thoughts. What are you thinking? What are you choosing to think? Right? Because what you're thinking will immediately impact how you feel, which will dictate directly the action you do or don't take, which will then dictate your outcome and result. Let me give you a really silly example. Circumstance, somebody cuts you off. Thought, oh, I want to put my fist through that dude's face, right? Feeling, anger, rage. Reaction, might speed up around him and cut him off or ride the bumper. Result, they have to slam on their brakes. You hit him. You get in a car crash. Circumstance, you're in a car crash. Thought, now you really want to mess this dude up, right? You see what I'm saying? Now, beginning circumstance. Somebody cuts you off. Thought, gosh, I hope he must be in a really big hurry to get somewhere. I hope everything's okay and it's not some sort of serious big emergency. Feeling, you ain't taking shit personal. You're chilled out. Action, you keep driving maturely, safely, normally. Result, you don't get in that car accident and you get where you're going, where you wanted to go. Now that's a really simple, cheesy example that is literally the 5-point flow of everything in our life in terms of circumstance, thought, feeling, action, result. Then that loop and that script just runs over and over and over again. So, what if you started constructing, like we did when we were kids, playing cops and robbers, Indians and cowboys? What if you started constructing these little fantastical delusions of a much, much more elevated or greater version of yourself, and then started walking around your mind believing that and acting like it and showing up like that version of you, talking like that version of you, thinking of like that version of you, making choices like that version of you. Because remember, when we played cops and robbers, if you were a cop, you thought like a cop in your little kid mind, right? You acted like a cop. You made decisions and actions like a cop. If you were the robber, you did the same. You with me? That game of playing as if works to get you in a state. And whatever state you're in the most of the time is going to directly have a reflective control on where your life is trending most of the time. You dig, right? You smoking what I'm rolling. Does that make sense? So, when I read the Bible, Hebrews 11 says, faith is the evidence of things not yet seen and the things hoped for. Now, I grew up Christian. I was born in a Christian family. I'm no longer a practicing Christian. And now I read the Bible and understand it to be a psychological allegory, which is actually, I think it's the single greatest book ever written on human identity. That aside, and I'm not quoting the Bible here to tell you to be a Christian or not. I'm simply quoting it as a powerful book, regardless of how you might think about the religion surrounding it or the religions surrounding it. Hebrews 11 says, faith is the evidence of things not yet seen and the things hoped for. What is that? Delusion. That is literally saying you got to be delusional. Faith is the evidence of things not yet seen. So nobody else sees it except you in your head, because that's where I guess your faith is, right? Faith and heart is in your head and your heart. It's the evidence of the things nobody else sees, including you, and the things hoped for. Well, what would you hope for? Well, something better, obviously. Nobody hopes for something worse, I don't think. What is that? A delusion. You create and construct a delusion for yourself that you say, that's mine, I'm going to get that, and then you just simply say, no, I got faith to get it. And then it also says in the Bible that you must be like a child to enter the kingdom of heaven. What are children really, really good at? Back to the beginning of the video, playing pretend, as if, imagining and being that thing that they're imagining being. When we were kids, we were so good at just like imagining any kind of fantastical circumstance and then just totally buying in right away, right? You got to bring some of that magic back. You got to re-spark some of that magic from your soul and your heart as an adult. And I promise you, you start hanging on to that and you start using it and start creating little delusions for yourself of a fantastical, elevated version of yourself where life went completely differently, maybe how it's gone for the last 5-10 years. And while addressing current responsibilities and realities, doing it from the state and the mind and the energy of that delusional, elevated version of yourself, guess what's going to happen? All your circumstances are going to start changing and starting to catch up with you and matching that elevated version of you. Do you know why? Well, if you want me to break it down to bullet points, circumstances, thoughts, feelings, actions, results lead to circumstances, thoughts, feelings, actions, results. Okay? So, while we may believe and think from our perspective that there are many delusional people in this world who have a wire missing and are off their rocker, God bless them, and we'll leave them up to God to be dealt with and addressed. But for ourselves, wasn't delusion how we used to have a lot of fun with our imaginations as little kids? Wasn't that a magical spark that we had? Where did it go? Can't we use it again? Doesn't the Bible say you must be like a child to enter the kingdom of heaven? What's the kingdom of heaven? Well, in my mind, the way I read it, it's an awesome place to be, whatever that might look like, right? Hebrews 11, faith is the evidence of things not yet seen and things hoped for. What's that? Playing pretend, delusion. Nobody sees it. Not you, not them, but you see it in your mind. And that's all that you need, faith. So, play around with this thought. What's 1, 2, or 3 little delusional play pretends that you can come up for yourself very clearly and vividly, that you emotionally connect with, that you would absolutely love to be true for your life right now, and then start playing pretend. Let that little inner kid let that little inner child that you still got somewhere, play pretend with that energy. Don't tell it to anybody. No. Don't say it to anybody. Don't share it with anybody. Just show up with that version of yours perspective. Eyes, ears, the words you utter and speak, the energy, the thoughts. Very quickly, my friend, you will find that reality is much more malleable than you think. As Albert Einstein said, reality is an illusion, albeit a persistent one.